Okay. Welcome back to Gib Work in Process. There's another simple thing I'm going to do. It's kind of a warm-up, kind of instructional. I like to make videos about where I came from. So when I was young, I started drawing somewhere around 2nd grade. And I hope this isn't copyrighted 100%. But there was a show I watched with Commander Mark. He did drawings for kids. And he's the one that taught me how to do 3-dimensional objects. Now, 3-dimensional objects are basically real life, but flattened, right? I ain't gonna try to draw this thing right now, but I could. It's got circles, it's got lines, it's got what we call half circles, arcs, this kind of stuff. So that's pretty complex. So let's just learn about the squares that I learned when I was a kid and what I learned to draw and how I learned to draw it. So the first thing I learned to draw as far as that was how to make a 3-dimensional square. It was as simple as putting 4 dots on a paper. And that's all you had to do. There, done. That's a square. See? You can connect those dots. We want this square, let's connect those dots here real fast, to look like it's sitting up. I'm going to just use my ballpoint pen this time because it's one of my go-tos. I also like to show people that you don't have to buy a whole bunch of art supplies. You kind of just have to use what you got. And I'm not going to try to be perfect because I don't expect anybody to be. So we connected all of these dots. And now we have this weird looking rectangle. Now I squished it a little because I knew what I was doing beforehand. But you guys can do whatever you want. And now that we have that square, we're going to make that square stand up. So we're going to choose these points at the end and we're going to bring them down. That's all. Just one line. One simple line. We want the 2 side lines to be shorter. You get to choose how long, how big. And once we finish up, we're going to put a dot on the back end of all of those. Right there. And it's as simple now as, I keep saying simple, I'm sure you probably don't think so some days. But the simplicity of any drawing is just to turn your brain off and try. And that's my box. Now there are 3 things that I want to talk about real fast with 3 dimensions. 3 very important things. Value or shading. Overlapping if necessary. And what we would call a vantage point. I like to think of it as, how dark is it? What goes before it or behind it? Where do things disappear? So we're going to start with the vantage point where things disappear. And all you got to remember is that as space goes backwards, things get smaller. I'm doing this on purpose. I'm following these lines with my hands. You see where they're going? So like all we gotta do is just keep going back. And wow, you've made yourself a vanishing point. And that would keep going back, and they get smaller together, and that's what we're looking at. We want all of the lines to start pointing towards a singular point. That's my vantage point. Now, where does it disappear? It disappears over there. It's two perspectives. We won't go there. It disappears over here too. What goes behind it? We're not going to deal with overlapping right now. We'll do that in a second. We're going to do how dark is it? So we're going to pretend my light's coming over here. So every time that I try to draw something, I try to think about where my sun is at. And I am just a simple guy. So I like to actually draw my sun so I can see it. Where all the light goes. And so if the light's coming from here, it's going to hit this side right here that we can't see underneath the most. But it's not going to hit this side too much. So we're going to make that like a light gray. Just like that. We know that once the sun hits here, that means it's not hitting here. So we're going to make that a little darker. And this is what we call values. The lighter or the darker it gets, the more values is called value. Don't need to think about color, don't need to think about anything. I'm using some crosshatch here to get it slightly darker and all these things. You can use crayon, you can use pencil, you can use boogers for all I know, as long as you get it slightly darker. Not even worrying about lines or placements. And there we go. The lightest, because the sun's going to hit the top of that. Slightly darker, because that's where the sun kind of hits. And the darkest, because that's where the sun ain't going. And because that's the darkest, we know there's no sun there, so we're going to do what we call a drop shadow. And a drop shadow is one of the darkest spots because that's indicating where that light isn't hitting. Like that. And for interest of time, I'm going to leave it like that because we want to do something else. We want to take this, and this is purely from Commander Mark. But by my elementary school stage, I was practicing this because I thought it was cool. So we're going to use that concept. We're going to do 1, 2, find the middle point, walk out over here, put a guy there, walk out over here, make it look about the same. And then we're going to connect those dots. I'm going to move it a little faster, I think. Now, drop these guys. Not going to make them so tall. I want them to be a little guy. Put your dots so you know where you're going. Draw your lines. That's my first cube. We didn't talk about cylinders, but we're going to make one, so we're going to drop some lines down for this. And a cylinder, if you remember, I had this up here earlier, has this kind of curved edge on the bottom. And as we're not drawing the top, we're just going to do this with a curved edge. So sometimes I draw like a little dot. Sometimes to connect the dots help. And I just kind of wing it. There you go. That's his little bit. Now we're going to do the exact same thing up here, but we're going to do it bigger down here, and so you can't really see half of it because it's going to overlap this cylinder that we put right here. So we're going to put, I'm going to start off with my other dots right about here. Why not? And then drop a third dot down here, just like we did before. And then we know that that other dot kind of goes somewhere up here. Oh, look, it kind of matches. Cool. So we're going to connect these dots from behind, but we're going to leave that line disappearing. And then we're going to connect this dot. And I'll tell you right now, my perspective isn't right. My squares aren't really squares. And that's fine, because I don't care. I want to see what this becomes. I don't want to see what it is. If we were talking about vanishing points, remember that comes all the way. If you just extend those lines back, what that's supposed to help you do is to squish it the right way. I'm not even caring about it. Now we're going to bring this guy down. We're going to make another a little longer. Rectangular solid. One of my friends asked me why I never draw a line without scratching it, and I couldn't tell you. I think it's probably uncertainty. Okay, I think we're good enough. Put our little dots there so we know where we're going. And we're gonna connect these guys. Doesn't gotta be perfect. In a perfect world, this line would be at the exact same angle as this line, and the exact same angle as that line, and the exact same angle as that line, and then we flip our pen and we do it again and again, and we practice and we practice. But I'm just making a cool little robot. So I want to do some more cylinders down here so that he's got legs. Did you know that was what I was doing? One's fatter than the other. That means he eats more cheese on that side. Okay, then we're gonna, I'm gonna do this so it's dots. Some dots, some dots, some dots. So I have some place to go. And this is a cylinder. So we gotta curve those dots. Lines. Sorry. Now he's got feet that are sitting on the floor. And I'm just going to let them be cylinders. I'm not even going to make them crazy. Now we need to do some robot arms. So we're going to do a circle here, more of an oval, just so I have an idea of what I'm doing. And then let's say his arm comes out here. And then we're going to use this line. And I'm just going to draw like a claw thingy. I'm not even going to try to make it cool. I'm just going to do a little fork. There we go. I don't want to take up all your time. Let's do that without that little thing in the middle. Actually, let's do it with the thing in the middle. Let's make it look not right. Because we're going to talk about values here in a second. And we're going to speed up. So values on a cylinder pretty much another tutorial, but I'm just trying to squeeze out these lines I left underneath there real fast so it doesn't stand out. Make them a little dark here, because I'm just trying to get the idea that this robot exists. Okay, the real value conversation comes with these squares. So where's our light go? Oh, even with pen, covering things up isn't hard. You just gotta make them darker. And also not care. Value, where's our sun? Let's put our sun back over here. He's going this way. So like before, we know this is the darkest side. I'm going to just do that first. This is the lighter side. I'm going to do that next. And then because it's darker, we're going to go ahead and cross hatch on top. And all of a sudden, now we're starting to see this thing become a three-dimensional object. Like I say, just real simple. I'm not trying to make the world a beautiful place. I'm just trying to train my eyes and my hands. A little bit darker because I'm using pen. Pen I kind of have to go over a couple of times to get shades and values. Technically, this would be darker than the arm. Coming out. There we go. Especially under here, there would actually be a secondary shadow. Don't want to get too complicated. But sometimes I do. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a shadow on this guy. Cylinders are pretty simple as far as shading goes. You start dark on one side, you end up light on the other, but right now we're just doing a simple thing. And because that has a shadow, we're going to put a little shadow out here. Like I say, I'm going to start moving a bit fast. Put some shadows down here. And so we've got overlapping where this is on top. And then the shape here is behind that shape. We've got values showing you the differences here. We've got shading, which helps establish where that light is going to go. Where is my light? How dark is it? What disappears? And what goes in front? It's pretty simple. And it's taken me almost all my life to try to learn it. And I still got a lot of work to do. Okay, now last things first, let's make a little face on here. Big oval eyes, oval black robot eyes. But this is a happy robot, so we're gonna do a happy robot face. Although it kind of looks a little crazy. Most robots are. We'll do the nose. There you go. So that's kind of how I first started learning three-dimensional things with the help of Commander Mark. He's still doing drawings today. He's a wonderful person. Look him up. 3 dimensions. Thank you for watching.